Welcome, everyone, to the Game or Die podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Moore, and we're going to try this again. I went live just a little bit ago, and unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties with the audio. And so I had to kind of troubleshoot everything, and I did fix it. It was some weird issue where the USB hubs just powered off and kind of switched audio inputs. A little bit weird, but it's all done. So we're going to start off this podcast right. Welcome to the Game or Die podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Moore, and today I'm going to be talking about a ton of video games. I've played a good probably 40 to 60 hours of video games in the last week. That's a lot, and it's probably too much, but video games are my favorite hobby, and it is something that I really, really enjoy. The reason why I played so much is because I've been getting into streaming. That's right. I've been a Twitch streamer for the last couple of weeks here and going continuously throughout the day. One stream in the afternoon for a few hours, and then a later stream going into the wee mornings of the hours. So it's been a blast. I've had a lot of fun, great conversations, by the way, too. And I have sampled a plethora, that's right, a plethora of games. So I'm here to talk about those games that I've been playing today on the podcast. It's Sunday afternoon. That's creeping up into Sunday evening. But again, wanted to go live a little bit earlier, but with those audio issues, they were just a little bit too much. So the first game that I want to talk about is Prince of Persia. Now, the new Prince of Persia came out a few days ago officially, but I've been playing it since earlier on in the week because I have the Ubisoft Plus subscription. Just like everything else, there is always a subscription now with every company. Everyone has to have one, right? We're probably all sick of it, but with gaming subscriptions, just like with most other subscriptions, you can kind of get something good out of it if you pick and choose. So the new Prince of Persia game called Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown released on Ubisoft Plus 3 days early. Or if you bought the game on its deluxe package, which I think is like $70-$80 now. Games are way too expensive. But if you bought the deluxe edition, you had early access 3 days early from the time of release. So I saw a lot of people playing this. I'm like, how there's no way that many people bought the deluxe edition of this game. That's kind of crazy. However, I did find that Ubisoft has it on their subscription service. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe I'll do that when the game comes out in a few days. But then I looked a little bit closer and it said 3-day early access. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take advantage of that. And that's exactly what I did. So I took advantage of it. I got the subscription. It's $18 a month for a Ubisoft subscription. And that's a lot because with Ubisoft, and I'm going to go to bat for them for a second, all right? With Ubisoft, I actually really liked their games. They were one of my favorite publishers/developers for a good long chunk of time, back around 7-8 years ago. Once they started really putting their foot forward with the Rayman series, the Prince of Persia series, kind of was starting to slow down a little bit. The Far Cry series, they kind of ramped up development on that. The Trials games, Assassin's Creed, anyone? I was really digging that company. Like, they were just making all the right steps along the way. Somewhere over the past, I'd say 4 years or so, they've really lost a lot of their footing. A lot of angel investors, a lot of, woke companies and stuff like that coming in and telling them, hey, if you include inclusivity and stuff like that, then we'll give you a bunch of money if you can do that stuff. And their products got a lot worse. I think we can all agree, even if you take a step back from some of that stuff and just look at their products over the last several years, it's gotten way, way worse. But I had a good time with them. I had a good time with Assassin's Creed being released every single year. And I think it was definitely waning, definitely something that they needed to take some time off from, but it was still a good game. So With Ubisoft, I've been very wary of them over the last several years, but they do release good stuff every once in a while. I still enjoy the Far Cry series. I still enjoy most of the Assassin's Creed game. I mean, heck, Assassin's Creed VR was on my top 10 list last year for 2023. So they're good games in there. You just got to pick and choose. So I was really, really excited for Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, as soon as it got announced. But when I watched that trailer, that trailer was awful. It was one of the worst tone-deaf trailers for a game that I've seen in a very long time. And what I mean by that is that the game itself looked fine. It's a side-scrolling exploration game. You know exactly what those types of games are. Ori and the Blind Forest, Castlevania, Metroid Dread, things like that. Hollow Knight. These are the types of games that this new game in the Prince of Persia series is, and I'll talk about it in a little bit here, but that's the style they're going for. Cool, awesome. I'm all down for that. I mean, the original Prince of Persia was a side-scrolling game when it first came out on the the Apple II, and I mean, even a Super Nintendo port and things like that. So it's not just being a 2D side scroller instead of a third-person action adventure game. So I'm okay with that. But when they showed off the trailer, it felt very much like they were catering to a very, 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 very specific crowd. And it was not the people who want to play Prince of Persia. The music in and of itself was this rap dubstep. And what is that doing in a Prince of Persia game? I don't think anyone wants that type of music in a Prince of Persia game. So I was initially really excited. And then as I was watching the trailer, I went, ooh, I don't know about this, but the gameplay kind of looks good. So I'll give it a chance. So we waited until January. The game got released, or early access. I downloaded it, and before that, actually what happened was there was a demo being released about a week before the game was coming out. So last week, I believe I talked about it on last week's podcast. I downloaded it, and I had a lot of fun with it. During the stream, I was downloading or playing the demo, and I was just enjoying it. It was fantastic. It was so much fun. So I kind of gave it the benefit of the doubt. I said, all right, I tried the demo. It kind of drops you in about an hour into gameplay. It cuts off a lot of sections that would spoil the story, and it tells you up front that it does that too, which I think is actually really, really beneficial for games to do. If you're going to give a demo for your game and you don't want to have spoilers, just cut it off. Just say, gate this progress and say, hey, this is an area that is going to lead to a story, and we don't want you to see the story. We want you to experience it, in the game proper. So I thought that was really interesting. So as I'm playing through the demo on stream, my brain is just starting to click into place of, oh, okay, this looks cool. Okay, that looks cool. Okay, this does feel like a Prince of Persia game. And I just had a single unlimited amount of joy just welling up inside of me as I was playing this game, especially in the area that you get dropped into. It's a castle. It's got wall spikes and floor spikes and, banners and poles that you swing and jump off of, wall jumps. It felt very Prince of Persia-y. I loved it. It was so much fun. So it kind of sold me on the game itself. That demo really did a number on me. So as I'm playing through it on the stream, I just kept telling myself, dude, I'm liking this. I could see myself buying this game now. Unfortunately, the game is $60, and I think that's a real high price for this type of game. I mean, we do have games of that nature that are $60, but it just seems like a lot in this day and age, especially when we have things like Game Pass and stuff like that allow us to play these games a couple months after release or whatever for basically free. In those games, some of them are short, some of them are long. It really depends. You have to put the time in to get the time out of the game that you want. So I was a little bit wary, but then I said, oh, okay, the Ubisoft subscription will allow me to play this game for 30 days and have it early or early access, earlier than release. So I was just like, dude, I gotta do it. So I asked my wife, hey, can I get this thing? It's a 30-day subscription for this service. I want to play Prince of Persia. And she was like, of course, yeah, go for it. $18 later, man, I'm downloading the real, full, official Prince of Persia game 3 days before anyone else is playing it. I mean, other than people who are doing the same thing I'm doing. Or bought the deluxe edition for $70, $80. So I started streaming it, and I go through the basic, tutorial section, and the game takes a long time to get going. It takes a real long time. I'd say about 4-ish hours before it really starts feeling like a Prince of Persia, side-scrolling exploration type of game. But in that 4 hours, in the initial 4 hours that I was playing it, I was having fun. But I wasn't having as much fun as I was having in the demo, because the demo does give you extra powers that you normally don't have. They really want to make sure that you understand what the game is, what it plays like, and what you're going to be doing through most of the game. And you don't have those powers early on. So I started playing it. I was having a good time, but not having the best time. And one of the things that really kind of hindered my enjoyment is every time I was playing this game, I was like, this really doesn't feel like a Prince of Persia game. It does feel like a good game. The combat is fantastic. The animations are great. The voice acting is good. And I'll talk about that a little bit later too. But one thing that did bum me out was the art style of the game. Although it looks good, it is not a bad looking game. In fact, when I was streaming this, I got raided by a couple streamers, when they ended their stream and they dumped their viewers into my streams. They kept saying, wow, this looks really good. This looks really good. And I was like, yeah, it's a beautiful looking game. The cutscenes, the art direction of the game is good, but it does feel a little bit like a mobile game. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but I'm just saying the character animations, especially when you're in the game engine, and you are stopped and talking to a person with dialogue, their portraits pop up, and then the dialogue pops up in subtitles at the bottom of the screen, and it feels very much like an anime or mobile type of game where the characters kind of just like their whole portrait kind of floats on screen and kind of is semi-animated, but it just feels like a lower tiered budget than what you would think a Prince of Persia game would have at this point. Prince of Persia holds a lot of weight in this industry. In gaming, it is it's a juggernaut. It's a franchise. I mean, it had a major motion picture, Hollywood picture and movie with Jake Gyllenhaal back in 2010, 2011. Like, it's a big deal. And to have this game be kind of pushed out at the beginning of the year when most games are not being released, all the major games have been released for the Christmas season, like, it feels a little odd and off. And not in a bad way, just in a different and a little bit awkward of a way. So I started playing it. I started having fun. I was talking to the people who were jumping into the stream and curious about the game. And I kept saying, yeah, it's a really fun game. The animation flows really well. Like, when you dodge, like, you slide under characters' legs, like in between them, it just looks really, really cool. The dodge and parry mechanics are just unbelievably awesome. So I've been playing this game for the past week, for several hours a day, 3-4 hour streams of just playing this game and talking to people about it. It's a difficult game. It's a real difficult game, but I'm having fun with it. I'm not great at parrying, and I'm learning how to get better at it, which is super fun too. So I was doing that, and then I also was having a lot of fun just talking to people about the game and my experiences of it. And I tried to be very cautious about how I was presenting the game, not because I want people to, buy it or anything. It's not sponsored. I'm just playing the game and giving my honest opinions about it. But I don't want people to think I'm down on the game because it is different. I think it is different, but in a pretty good way for the most part. The only issue that I have is it doesn't feel like a Prince of Persia game. It feels like a very different game that has Prince of Persia tied to it kind of almost at the last minute. And the reason why is because you don't play as the prince. You're playing a Prince of Persia game and you don't play as the prince. That's kind of a big issue. This happened earlier, or just a few months ago in October with the release of Alan Wake 2, kind of. And the reason why I say that is because in Alan Wake 2, you don't play as Alan Wake for half of the game. You play as Saga Anderson. But in Alan Wake 2, you do play as Alan Wake at some point. I am 25 hours into Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. And without getting into major spoilers, you don't play as the prince, period. The prince barely has any lines or any presence in his own game. And one of the bummer things about that is the prince has a very charming character to him. Like his presence is really charming. Think back into the Sands of Time games, like that trilogy of games. The prince was very soft-spoken, and he, had his princely duties that he was trying to do, but he was also trying to save his kingdom. In the first game, and one of the biggest things that I really loved and was captivated by with the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time coming out in 2003, is when you're playing the game, the prince, your character is narrating as you go along. And if you make a mistake, if you fall off a cliff or into a pit or jump off of too high of a castle ledge or something like that, and you die or you die in combat, anything that requires you to restart and you lose the life of your character, he goes, "Oh, wait, no, that's not it." Yeah, my British accent or whatever accent he has in that, it's terrible. I apologize. But he goes, "No, wait, that's not it. That's not how it happened. Let me remember it." And then it starts you off with the next life. Like you respawn in the last save section. And just that little tweak of taking this pre-established notion of how we play video games, like we are playing the character, but we're watching the character and we're kind of disconnected from it. But now it's being told as a story, was super charming and just really, really interesting. And it captivated my imagination of sitting down and listening to this prince tell me a story, but I kind of get to control the character along the way. It was amazing. So that is why I love that series so much. And we don't get any of that in the new series. With this new series, or this new game at least, 1, you don't get the narration. 2, the prince isn't even in it, and you don't, again, he is in it technically, but he has like maybe 5 lines as far as I've come across so far. I'm sure he has more later on at the end of the game, but right now he's spoken about 4 or 5 lines of dialogue, and it's not that great. He's not a character in the game, really. That's a big bummer to me. I was so looking forward to being playing Prince of Persia and playing as the prince and, exploring the city that I'm in as a prince and having combat as the prince. And he's just not a character really in his own game. So it doesn't feel like a Prince of Persia game in that aspect. It also doesn't feel like a Prince of Persia game because of the character you do play as. You play as Sargon, the prince's bodyguard. And you do a very bad job about it because the whole beginning of the game, he basically gets kidnapped and you're running around trying to save him. So Sargon is not an enjoyable character to be around. He kind of sucks. He's very much an angry, angsty 20-something. And he's got a chip on his shoulder. Like, you know the character that I'm describing. Everything is a whiny quip about how people don't respect him or, whatever, but not in like a Rodney Dangerfield way. It's more of a, why is this happening to me? Oh, I can do better than you can. Get out of my way. And it's just, he comes off like a brash jerk. And that's not the character I want to play as in a Prince of Persia game. Prince of Persia is like a very lofty, very high and mighty, just like a really interesting style of game. And this comes off as a very kind of indie game in a way, which is weird because the pedigree behind the game itself is of Ubisoft Montreal. They created Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends using the Ubisoft art engine. Man, remember those games and how good they felt to play and how charming and wonderful they were? We're going from that super happy, colorful, tight platforming to a very dark, gritty, and I hate that word. I hate dark and gritty. But you know what that means in this day and age now. So it goes into this like very just angsty, cranky, angry protagonist that just is not really fun to play as or be around. And so every line of dialogue, for the most part, there are times where he is trying to be nice. He is trying to kind of have a conversation with someone. But for the most part, he comes off like a whiny teenager. And I just don't enjoy playing as him. And it's funny because as I was playing this game, I unlocked secrets and, little treasure chests off the beaten path. And I've unlocked a few skins. The skins that I've unlocked, most of them are fairly normal, just different color clothing options and stuff. There is a Prince of Persia Warrior Within skin. So he actually is dressed in the Warrior Within, which is the second Prince of Persia game in the Sands of Time trilogy. And I've been having that as the main outfit to wear because it kind of looks like and reminds me of an actual Prince of Persia game. Since this game doesn't feel like one, it's nice to have a little bit of a coat of paint to say, yes, this is Prince of Persia. It's nice. So I've been playing as that. However, there's a couple other skins. And if you don't know what skins are in video games, they're basically just like colors and palette swaps and new clothing items for your character that you can unlock, but they're kind of pre-made, so you don't get any option to customize it at all. It's just like, oh, your character has an orange hat instead of a black hat. And then his hair is long instead of short. His pants are short instead of long. Like all of that combined into a character that you can apply, or a skin that you can apply to your character. So as I'm going through the different skins and unlocking them, there's a couple that actually change the color of his skin to like a very dark gray or a red. And then it changes the color of his hair as well from black to like snow gray or white. And when I came across that skin and I was looking at it after I unlocked it, I went, this makes this character, Sargon, instead of looking like the prince, he looks like Kratos from God of War. And then it instantly clicked in my mind, wow, this feels like it could have been a God of War game. And it feels very much in that vein. And it feels very much like it should have been a God of War game instead, like a side God of War game. And the reason why is because the combat itself is just so much different than the Prince of Persia for the most part. And the setting is so much more different than Prince of Persia. There's a lot of monsters that don't really belong in Prince of Persia. From what I remember, I played all three of the Sands of Time games. I played the originals. I played a few, like the 2008 Prince of Persia that everyone loves that I didn't really get into. I played a little bit of the movie tie-in version and all that stuff too. But the enemies that you really fight a lot in the game, in the Lost Crown, this new one, it's not that great. And they feel like they belong in a different game. It almost feels like what we got with Super Mario Brothers. With Super Mario Brothers 2, back in the day, what we got here in America was totally different. Like, everyone knows this, right? Doki Doki Panic was the game, and it's a bunch of different characters, but they look kind of like Mario and his pals. So they slapped the sprites in of Mario, Princess, Toadstool, Luigi, and Toad into Doki Doki Panic, kind of cut some of the weird things like game saves and some of the music and replaced it with a couple other different-ish characters and called it a day and said, this is Mario 2. So that's kind of what it feels like with this new Prince of Persia game. It just feels like it's not a Prince of Persia game, but at some point, some executive said, we need to have a Prince of Persia game come out. This game could be altered in a way to make it Prince of Persia. And that's what it feels like. And it's a real big bummer. But the game itself is good. If this game was called anything different, I would love it. I would really, really dig this game. Right now, as it stands, as I keep getting stuck in this game, that's my major issue, is I keep getting stuck in the game. I've had a lot more issues with it. And then basically, I've probably wasted about 5 hours of gameplay in this game just hitting my head against a wall. Just going, where the heck do I go? What the heck do I do? But I'm having fun with it. So it's like a solid 7.5-ish type of game for me at this point. Like, it's good, but it's not Prince of Persia good. And the voice acting is really good. I really like it. I had someone in the Discord say that they felt like they came across an AI character for the voice. Like, they thought it was AI generated. And as I was going through the game, I was like, there's no way. This is all totally real people. And then I came across a character that has a mask on and their voice is muffled a lot. And that's where I think that they were talking about, it sounds like AI. And I said, I don't believe so. I don't think it is. It just sounds like they literally recorded someone with a mask over their face, or they did a lot of post-processing. I don't think it's AI. I don't think AI is that prevalent in video games yet. There's a few little things here or there, but I do not believe it's that prevalent in video games yet. And it sparked this whole conversation during the stream too about AI and voice acting. And if I wanted to, I could totally get into it. I don't really want to as much right now, but I'll give you a little taste of what the conversation kind of sounded like. I started talking about how AI can really benefit video games in certain aspects. A game like Skyrim or Starfield. Let's take Skyrim, for example, because that's a great example for it. The voice acting in that game is great, but there's 3 people in that game that voice act. Every other character you come across has the same exact voice, same exact lines as the people, 5 miles down the road or, across the entire continent. So it becomes really apparent, like, wow, the Jarl from this town and the Jarl from that town have the same exact lines, same exact voice, same exact everything, same exact look even. And AI can be used as a tool to fix those things. Instead of having the developers spend the time crafting new lines of dialogue and, having the entire, studio hire someone to voice act, hire the recording artists and stuff like that, the studio time to record, having it edited, having it put into the game and attached to dialogue, all of that stuff can be used by AI to kind of finesse some of the very, very intricate little small details of the world to build it out. You're walking across the road, on your way from Whiterun to Riften, and you come across a few different travelers along your way. They all have different voices. They all say something completely different to you. And it's this different for every single person who plays that game for the rest of our lives. Like, how cool is that? AI can do that stuff. AI is tools to be used to help us create better content. That is what AI should be doing. So that's kind of like the little conversation I had during the stream, and it was really fun. I had a blast talking with people. I even talked to someone who was a voice actor, and they said, I have a very different opinion than you, Ryan. I said, I totally understand. I get it, man. If that's your job and you're afraid because AI, you think AI is going to take over, like I get the apprehension for it. However, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. And I mean, we went through a whole writer's strike and, acting strike and all that stuff because of this issue. I just don't think it's A, that big of a deal yet. And B, when it does become a big deal, I don't think it's going to take away most people's jobs. Just like how, back in the 60s when factory robots were starting to be a thing, most people didn't lose their job. They got different jobs that are probably way better. Like, the only times that I can think about it are like very monotonous work. And, the field that I work in, I teach people who do the hands-on, solder and stuff like that. And it's not that big of a deal. Like, yes, there are pick and place machines, and that's used in a lot of companies for certain things, but there is still a ton of people that do stuff manually and by hand. And so I don't think it's going to be the same. I think it's going to be the same exact thing as this stuff for video games and studios and voice actors and all that stuff and writers. And I have a bone to pick with writers in video games. So I welcome AI writing in most games at this point. I think writing is atrocious in most video games. Not all of them, but most of them. But that's my little AI rant, all right? So I really enjoy Prince of Persia. I think most of it is a good to great game. But because it does have the Prince of Persia title attached to it, I think it does knock off some points. For me personally, because I hold Prince of Persia in such high regard. I think that series is supposed to be put up on a pedestal a little bit, elevated a little bit more so that it's held in a higher regard. That's how I feel anyways. Most people probably disagree. Most people probably love this game because it is that style of game. Hollow Knight, Ori and the Blind Forest, all that type of stuff. Metroid, Castlevania, wink, wink, hint, hint. But I personally just think it's a detriment to name it Prince of Persia. I would have enjoyed this game. I probably wouldn't have played it, though. I definitely wouldn't have gotten it early access on Ubisoft Plus. I definitely would have waited. So their marketing strategy does work. But at the same time, next time around, the next Prince of Persia game that comes out, I'm going to be a lot more wary of it. It's doing damage in the long run versus short term, right? Short term, they got my money. They got at least $18 out of me. Long term, they're damaging the reputation of the actual product in the IP, whatever, if you want to get legalistic on it. But the franchise, the name Prince of Persia, has now been tainted a little bit because of this game. And look, there's been bad Prince of Persia games before, of course. But it's been such a long time that this kind of does reset the Prince of Persia bar for probably 99% of people. For me, it doesn't reset the bar. It kind of lowers it a little bit, lowers my expectations and lowers what I think about the entire series from, the beginning of inception of the first game to now. There's a good chunk of Prince of Persia games. This is one of the better ones, but it shouldn't have been called Prince of Persia. And that's all I got to say on Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. I've also been playing a lot of old retro games. So last week I was doing retro game nights, and I'm starting to do basically like events, or I'm not really sure what to call them, but when I stream, I have a theme in mind. So the last week or so, I've been doing a stream a night where I do retro games, and I call it retro game nights. Super creative, right? But it works because it kind of tells the viewer, hey, this is exactly what's going to happen. It's the nighttime and I'm playing retro games. So I've been playing a lot of these old retro games and I've been having a lot of fun going back to the classics. So early on, I was really struggling to find out what should I play. I went through my launch box and I was scrolling through and I was going, what should I play? What should I play? What should I play? And I ended up on going, you know what? Donkey Kong Country. I love that series and I kind of want to play the series again. So that's exactly what I did. I started playing Donkey Kong Country. I didn't think I was going to get through the whole game, but over the course of the next couple of streams, and how many people were talking to me and having fun watching me play, I actually ended up beating the game on stream. And it's interesting because I beat a game earlier in the year. The first game that I beat this year was Close to the Sun. I talked about it on the previous episode of the podcast, where it's very BioShock-ish, but there's no combat really involved and stuff like that. So this was the second game this year that I beat on stream. I beat a couple of games on stream. I beat Diablo 1 last year. I beat a couple others over the last couple of years that I've been streaming. But when I started playing this Donkey Kong Country game, people were digging it, man. They were really watching me, having fun, giving me strategies and all this stuff, encouraging me when I felt like I couldn't do it. It was really fun. And I made some good friends along the way. So after I beat Donkey Kong Country 1, I was like, dude, the night is still young. Why don't we just get into Donkey Kong Country 2? So I started getting into Donkey Kong Country 2 because that's my jam. That is the game I remember. I do remember, and I did play Donkey Kong Country, but I didn't own Donkey Kong Country. When I got my Super Nintendo, it was a little bit later than most people. So Donkey Kong Country 2 was out at the time that I got my Super Nintendo. So I played that. That's the Donkey Kong Country game that I owned. So I played that and I had a blast with it. It was super fun. I played through the entire world in that same night that I beat the first game. So played through, finished Donkey Kong Country 1, immediately went into Donkey Kong Country 2 and beat the entire first world, which is like 5 or 6 levels. Just had a blast. Then afterwards, I went into the next few nights. I continued on with it because, again, we're having so much fun talking on chat and stuff like that during the stream. Then I got to the back half of that game, and boy, it is difficult. The first half of the game, not that difficult. There's some challenging jumps and platforming sections and stuff like that, but for the most part, that game is fairly simple and easy. I wouldn't say easy, but I would say not bad. However, towards the back half, once you get to the, after the roller coaster in the theme park, when you get to the beehive, when you get to the swamps, when you start going up the tower to save Donkey Kong, and spoilers for a 1994 platformer on the Super Nintendo, that is where the game gets difficult. That is where it becomes very, very challenging. And I had a good time with it, but I definitely had to use save states. I am not used to talking while I play video games. And so when I stream and talk about playing video games while playing video games, my mind is in two different sections, right? It's being split. My attention span is being split between two different things. So I'm not really paying attention as much to the game and where I should be focusing and jumping and all that stuff. So I had a much harder time playing that. But it was still fun. That boss fight with the bee it was like 2:30 and at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was just getting frustrated. I had to, just call it an evening after I finished it. Boy, that was tough. And then the game got harder from there. Very, very difficult in the back half of Donkey Kong Country 2. Once I got to Captain K. Rool, man, that boss fight, it took me about, I'd say, probably about 45 minutes, maybe even an hour. I don't know. I was making a lot of little simple mistakes that I didn't need to make. And it was probably because I was still, again, talking mostly and having my attention divided. Not as much because it was just one or two viewers just going, hey, you got this, man. Oh, just make sure you jump over this or maybe roll through that or whatever. But it was still a blast. And I did it as well. That's the key thing is I did finish and beat that game. And it was just so much fun. Again, using save states for checkpoints just so that I'm not having to get a game over screen, go to the main menu, load back into the game. It just takes too much time. So I would use save states very sparingly for the most part, which I'm not used to because I usually do save states like after every level or something because my attention does move so often from one game to another or just in life doing one thing or another and having to stop in the middle of a video game to, take care of the animals or, go to dinner with my wife or something like that. So trying to play the game normally like I did back then is a little bit harder for me than most people. There's a lot of people that I've been talking to. There's this guy that I've been talking to. He's another streamer. He's doing an anniversary stream right now. Pear Gamer, man, he is doing this big long anniversary, and he was encouraging me. Yeah, don't use save states. Go into hardcore mode when you load up RetroArch so that it disables save states so that you can play it like you originally played it, and it will give you retro achievements. And people really love that stuff. I'm like, that's awesome. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I have the attention span to do that, or not even the attention span, but the desire and drive to really grind out games, because some of those games can be very difficult and very unforgiving. Some could even say they're unfair. Totally fine. I agree. There are unfair games. I mean, anything like look at NBA Jam. The rubber banding in that game is straight up broken and unfair, and the game actually does cheat. But all that being said, it is an accomplishment, and I wish, and maybe I will, maybe as I continue streaming a lot more and focusing more on that section, maybe I will knock everything, disable the save states. Maybe I will go into hardcore mode and really actually try it. But right now for me, I'm just having a blast playing video games, playing games that I A, either played before, or B, I never even played before. And that's what's really cool about these retro game nights that I'm doing. I did have a viewer's choice stream. Even last night, I kind of made it into a viewer's choice stream because I really couldn't have it. I haven't been able to figure out what I want to play next, because after I beat Donkey Kong 2, or Donkey Kong Country 2, I went into Donkey Kong Country 3 and started playing that. And that's the game I'm least familiar with. I remember my friend had that game, played it. He showed it to me. I thought it was a really cool game when it came out, but it was at the end of the Super Nintendo lifespan. It actually came out after the Nintendo 64 was out. And dude, like, come on. Are you going to really sit there and play a Super Nintendo game when the Nintendo 64 is sitting right there? So I wasn't really into Donkey Kong Country 3, but I do remember a good chunk of it, like little pieces here and there. I remember the elephant and squirting the water and kind of pulling barrels in with the trunk. I remember Kiddy Kong and his stupid whine whenever you would die, and he would just sit there and throw a little mini tantrum. I hated that as a kid. It's not too bad now. I can kind of look over and gloss over it. But when I was playing that game, oh my gosh, as a kid, seeing a kid tantrum, I hated it. It was almost like in Super Mario Brothers 2 or World 2, Yoshi's Island, it's almost like Baby Mario crying. It's just annoying. Oh, it's just grating. But I had a blast playing through that series. I finished Donkey Kong Country 3 pretty early on because that game is much more simple. It is much easier. The difficulty doesn't come until the very, very end. And there's only a few, or like I'd say a handful of levels that really gave me challenge. There is this one, and it's super creative. Oh my gosh, this was my favorite part of this game. There is this level where you are going through a forest during a rainstorm, or thunderstorm actually, and lightning is shooting down at the ground. And it is just the way that they darken the environment and the lighting of the level, and the fact that the lightning strikes, you have to time where you are, because it does. And this is luckily someone told me about this. One of the viewers in chat were telling me, oh, be careful of the lightning, but you can predict where it's going to be because it flashes where it's going to be first and then goes away and then comes back. And I played that level for maybe about 20 minutes or so, probably. My timing could be off, but it felt like about 20 minutes. Even though I kept dying over and over and over and over again, I had a blast because of the creativity of that level. And that's what the Donkey Kong Country series really is defined by. It's creativity. 3 is not as creative, but it does feel very fun to play. I do enjoy it. It just doesn't feel as creative. They do reuse a lot of the same ideas, but it is not that bad. It's a really fun, enjoyable game. It is also very simple and basic. There is a section where you go into a cave and you have to play a little tiny game of Simon. And if you don't know what Simon is, go look it up. Go look up the 80s commercial of Simon. It was this toy that basically had sections of a circle, and they were all different colors. So you had yellow, blue, red, and green, I think it was, like primary colors. And the game would light up and make a beep for that section of that color. And then you would have to hit it and repeat it. And it was basically a memorization puzzle game. And so you basically do that in this game. You hit the buttons that correspond to the light and color of whatever shows up on the screen, and you have to memorize it, but it is not very hard. It's like four notes. So A, B, B, X. And then you just have to go A, B, B, X, and then you get it, right? So it's not too terribly difficult, but it is still a fun game, and it is creative. And the one thing that I noticed is these levels don't feel connected in the way the other games did. Like when you went to Donkey Kong Country 1 or Donkey Kong Country 2, those levels felt created in a way that they all were cohesive. They all felt contained within the same world. This other one doesn't feel like that very much at all. And I told people this, I said while I was streaming, I feel there was a very simple solution to this. You could have had the forest world where you go into the tree, you play around in the tree level, and then it kind of opens up and allows you to go higher up in the tree. And then the next level after that, the third level, is the one where the tree is getting sawed, and it's an auto-scrolling level, and you have to jump up and avoid the saw that's going up. And then the next level should be in the sawmill, and then the next level after that is the boss in the sawmill. Connecting it and making this little tiny storyline out of the connection of the levels would have made it a lot better, instead of playing the saw level, 5 levels in, and then playing the sawmill level 10 levels in, and then going back to another tree level, maybe 2 hours later in the game. It didn't feel cohesive in a way that it should have. They should all be connected. They should all be one piece. But that's a little nitpick. That's a little thing that doesn't really matter all that much. I had a blast playing that series. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really trying to figure out what I want to play next. So the last few nights, I've been doing viewer's choice or request streams where someone says, hey, play this game, and I'll load it up. I've been playing a lot of little games, starting the stream off with maybe no one watching. I'll just kind of pick a game on my own. But once people start filtering in, start really enjoying the games that I'm playing, dude, it just becomes this whole thing of, dude, let's see how many different games there are. And maybe you can suggest a game that I've never played before. Fantastic. One viewer requested a game called Mole Mania on the Game Boy, the original Game Boy. I've never played that game before. It's very simple and basic, but it's a puzzle game where you basically play as a mole, and this guy just beats the mole's wife over and the kids over her head, throws them in a sack and takes off and leaves a note for Mr. Mole and says, "Ha ha ha, I got your wife and kids, come get them." And it's like, wow, that went sideways quick. But basically the gameplay itself is very basic. It's a puzzle game, but it has 2 levels. You have the top ground level, and maybe there's some rocks in the way of your path. So you dig underground, and the screen flips and inverts and basically shows you the underground section of where you are. And now you can dig underneath the rock and come out the other side. But sometimes on the other side, there is something and you can't see underground where those rocks are placed. So you kind of have to do this little puzzle thing, and it is just super unique. I've never played it before, and I had a blast playing it. So that's what I've been doing for retro game nights. It's been just a real big joy. While I've been streaming, I have not been paying close attention to games or releases or articles about video games and websites about video games like I normally do, which is a breath of fresh air, to be honest. I have a big bone to pick with games media in general. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know it. But man, what a breath of fresh air it has been to just kind of do my own thing. Instead of listening to people, write or read articles about the newest, latest, and greatest trend to be upset about in video games, I've actually been playing video games and talking to people about video games myself. It's been fantastic. But on the flip side of that, I have missed a lot of little things, announcements and stuff like that. I wanted to do a stream where Xbox was actually doing their, press conference. They call a direct, which I think stealing Nintendo's direct name is really dumb. Come up with your own naming convention for it and stick with it. I do think PlayStation's State of Play is kind of a little bit dumb, but hey, at least it works and at least it's different. But they did their own Xbox Developers Direct, and they showcased a few things, one of which was the new Indiana Jones games, which is pretty interesting because the evening before, and I didn't know this was going to happen, no one knew that they were going to show off the new Machine Games Indiana Jones game. While we were finishing up, I think I finished up Donkey Kong Country 3 or whatever it was. I was talking to a few people in chat, and I actually started bringing up one of my favorite things that I did this last summer, which was video game pinball. Playing Pinball Arcade, which I did a whole video on it. Go check out the YouTube video if you want to. My top 5 pinball tables of last year that I really enjoyed playing. It was just fun, super fantastic. So I was showing off Pinball Arcade in Launchbox and how I've configured Launchbox to actually launch each individual table in and of itself without too much hassle. Instead of going into Pinball Arcade versus in Steam and then pulling up each individual table on its own, like I could just double click on the pinball table that I want to play and it launches right into it. So I had a blast showing off that. There's one pinball table that I really kind of got stuck on, which was the Indiana Jones trilogy table, where it actually kind of combines all the indie adventures, all 3 of them, because there's only 3 indie movies, right? We all agree there's only 3 Indiana Jones movies. But as I was talking with everyone and playing that, I ended up just playing Indiana Jones pinball for like 3 hours straight. It was really fun, but kind of crazy. Up until 4:30 in the morning, talking with everyone, just playing video game pinball and having a blast with conversations. It's funny because, like I said, the next day, Xbox went live with their Direct, and they finally showed off the thing that we heard about in 2020. At the tail end of 2020, we heard about, oh no, it was early 2021, because it was right when we moved out here to Tennessee. They announced Machine Games is going to be doing a Indiana Jones game. The people who made the new Wolfenstein games. You have Wolfenstein, the Old Blood, Wolfenstein, the New Colossus, Wolfenstein, the New Order, and then Wolfenstein Youngbloods, which Youngbloods was just a rough, bad game. It's a bummer that they never finished the trilogy. I don't know what happened. Maybe this was the reason why we got Youngbloods. I don't know. But they announced it back in late 2020 or early 2021. And it's funny hearing people talk about it. I actually had a few text messages saying, did you see the new trailer for the Indiana Jones game? And I said, no, I haven't. I didn't even know that they did that. I was streaming. And a couple people were like, dude, I can't believe they went with a first person shooter. And I was like, yeah. And wait, you're surprised by that? Because Machine Games does that. That's what they do. They're a first person shooter studio. I don't know why people didn't think it was going to be a first person game. I personally think, I knew it was going to be a first person game. I said it back then. I wonder what the Indiana Jones game is going to look like in first person because, dude, that's what they do. Secondly, I'm excited for it because I think that's a really interesting concept. It's Indiana Jones. It's going to be good. And how is the whip going to work in first person? That's what I've always wanted to know. How are they going to make whip combat look and feel cool in first person? So they showed off the trailer for it. It looks pretty cool. They didn't show a lot of first person. It was a lot of cutscenes more than anything else. They wanted to showcase young, de-aged Harrison Ford face more than anything else. But dude, it looks like a good game. I'm excited about it. It's going to come out this year as well, which I'm super stoked about. Again, I was talking about it on stream multiple times. What is this year going to look like for video games? We got so many last year. So many major games came out last year. And the bigger games, like something like Halo or the Gran Turismo or Forza Horizon series and stuff like that, like the big staples of modern holiday releases, they're not going to come out for a while. They just released those like a couple years ago, and games are taking way too long to come out now. I could do a whole rant on why developers feel like they need to make a game release every 7 years. But that's a story and a rant for another time. I was lamenting, what is this year going to look like? Are there going to be any new big games coming out? And of course, there's going to be new games coming out, but how many big ones? Luckily, beginning of this year, we got the, we know that Indiana Jones is going to come out this year, and I'm super excited about that. And it's kind of crazy too, because when you don't know something is going to come out, then the possibilities are endless. But when you do know the release date of everything for the year, then you kind of have to only look forward to those things. And I'm kind of surprised that we didn't get something like we did last year, where we got a surprise drop of something. Remember what we got last year? We got Hi-Fi Rush last year. Surprise release of Hi-Fi Rush, which turned out to be one of my favorite games of last year. It was in my top 10. It was number 10, but it still was a top 10 release from last year. How cool was that game, right? So it's kind of a bummer we didn't get anything this year. And I feel like that's going to be a lot of this year. A lot of this year, I feel, is going to be a lot of, okay, that's in 2025, 2026, something around there. I just do not feel like we're going to get a lot of big, crazy announcements that are going to come out this year. Or I feel like we're going to get maybe 3, one from each publisher or big console maker. I think we're going to get 1 surprise release from Nintendo, 1 from PlayStation, and 1 from Xbox or Microsoft of, excuse me, of a big surprise release that drops that day. And I don't even think it's going to be that big of a deal type of one. I think it's going to be a lot of indie games or games that we just go, all right, cool. That was a fun little thing for a day or two or for a week. It might be some free to play type thing or something like that. But I think that's kind of where we're at right now with video games at this year is I think we're going to have a pretty dry year for video games. Luckily, we have so many video games, and that's why I'm going back to a lot of them as well. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to right now is Indiana Jones coming out later this year, probably near the end. Like, let's be honest, this is probably going to be an October, early November release before Black Friday, like always. I would love a summer indie game. I think that would be great, but I just don't think it's in the cards. Another game that I'm excited about, I was talking about this last night, is the Tomb Raider games are getting remade. Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3. And I did a whole series in Retrocember. Last year in December, I did Retrocember, which is basically a celebration of old classic games. And I did a YouTube video for 1 a day on a PlayStation game. So 2 years ago, I did Retrocember where I kind of showcased 8 and 16-bit games. Now, with last year, 2023, I showcased PlayStation games only, 32-bit consoles. And so one of the days, I showcased Tomb Raider and talked about my memories of Tomb Raider. That was so much fun. I really, really, really enjoyed that. Then last year, they started talking about their remaking Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3. It's releasing on Valentine's Day of all days, so we're just a couple weeks away. We're about 3 weeks away from Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 remake. And I'm excited about that. I don't know if I will play through all of those games. Maybe it'll be a stream type of scenario. I think it would be really fun to stream those games, but I haven't played those games in a very long time. I never played through 1. I played parts of 1. I played parts of 1 Anniversary. That came out, in 2008? That was a really interesting game. I really liked the grapple mechanic that they implemented and stuff like that, but I never played through it all the way. When I did Retrocember, when I was making that video, I played up to a couple levels, but that was it. And it was more for recording the actual gameplay than anything else. So I'm really excited to play through 1 because my cup of tea, not idea, but the way that I played these games in this order was I played Tomb Raider 2 first. I played it on PC. And then when I did finally get a PlayStation, I did play Tomb Raider 3 on the original PlayStation. But I never actually played through 1. So I'm really interested to play through 1, then play through 2 and 3 in great modern detail, a remake of that. I don't know how it's going to play. I'm really interested if they are sticking with the tank controls or if they're going more direct control, and I think it's going to be that, which I'm excited about. I think direct control for those games is just way better. The weird turning and sidestepping and stuff like that, at the time was totally fine. It was totally acceptable, and I have no problem with even playing those controls today. But if you're going to remake it, you have to make it with modern, understanding of control layouts and things like that. We got dual sticks, camera control, stuff like that, right? Is it going to be auto lock-on targeting, or are we going to actually be able to move Lara's guns around? Like, I'm excited, man. I'm really, really excited for the Tomb Raider series. I love the Tomb Raider series. When I was younger, man, I really dug those games. And it's kind of interesting. It's kind of come full circle all the way around. You had Indiana Jones back in the day, right? Back in the 80s and 90s, we had Indiana Jones. Then in the mid 90s, we got Tomb Raider, which was basically a female version of Indiana Jones. Lara Croft had her time in the spotlight. She kind of went away, faded from the limelight. And then we got a male version of Lara Croft in Uncharted with Nathan Drake, right? So we had that whole thing. And then it was just like, well, he's not actually a young or a male version of Lara Croft. He's just a clone of Indiana Jones. And now we're back to Lara Croft, probably, again, with the remakes and stuff like that, with the modern reboot. And I say modern in air quotes because it was funny. I mentioned this. The modern reboot of Tomb Raider was over a decade ago. In 2020 or 2013 is when Tomb Raider 2013 came out. So it was over a decade ago that we got that reboot series. And I love those 3 games. Tomb Raider 2013, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and Rise of the Tomb Raider. I believe in that order. I can't remember. No, Rise is 2, Shadow is 3, right? It's been a while since I played those. But those 3 games are really, really good. I did not enjoy the third one as much. I think 1 and 2 are excellent games that everyone should play. But Tomb Raider, man, I'm super, super stoked on that. I'm excited, man. Valentine's Day can't come soon enough. And then I've been playing for Game of the Month, Shadows of Doubt. The title escapes me sometimes. I can't remember what it's actually called. I believe it's called Shadows of Doubt. It's a pixelated film noir style game in voxel technology, and it's just really enjoyable. It's really fun, man. I dig that series, or not that series, that game. I really enjoy that game. It is very difficult for me, though. The way that the emergent gameplay plays out, you can get stuck, you can get killed, you can stumble into areas where you're not supposed to be very, very easily. And it's an early access game. So it is not the biggest deal in the world that maybe some things are broken, maybe some things don't work really well. It is still actively being in development. It came out in April of 2023. So it is not even been in early access for a year yet, and I'm playing it as Game of the Month. And it's more because I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to play for Game of the Month in January. I was so busy doing Retrocember, that took up so much of my time, plus all the Game of the Year stuff I did. Not only did I do a Retrocember video every single day in December, so 31 days, 31 videos, I also did a whole Game of the Year set of videos. I think I did like 8 or 9 Game of the Year videos, wrote the scripts, voice acted or recorded the dialogue, edited those. And then I did a whole Game of the Year stream, which took about 4 hours on New Year's Eve. Like, December was so jam-packed that it was really, 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 really tiring on New Year's Day. So New Year's Day and day 2 or day 3 kind of lumped together for me, of just kind of going, I don't have to work on stuff right now. I don't have to work on videos for the website. I don't have to post videos on YouTube today. But I had a blast doing it, and it was so much fun. And I received a lot of good accolades and responses from it, saying, hey, these are really good. This is awesome. And then I started really going forward with streaming and really kind of putting myself out there with streaming and saying, look, I enjoy playing video games. I enjoy talking about them. Talk about them with me on stream. So that's, again, doing even this podcast live instead of sitting here doing the same thing without hitting record on and streaming it out. like, why not at this point? So it's been a really crazy last couple of months here, and I've been enjoying every single moment of it. It's not really been stressful all that much. A few things with the stream, like this morning, kind of broke, and I had to troubleshoot on stream, and had to, just throw my hands up in the air, get frustrated, walk upstairs, have a sandwich, and then come back down and work at it some more. But it all works out. It all ends up fine in the end. So I've been having a really fun time with that and streaming. And I want to do one more Shadows of Doubt Game of the Month stream. I'll probably do that this week sometime, just so that I can kind of be done with it for now. It's not something that I'll never come back to. I will come back to that game, but I'm going to let it sit in the oven for a little bit. I'm going to let it lie. I'm going to let the developers do their thing and let them really finalize that game. And once it becomes a 1.0 release, then I will play it again, because it's a really cool game, but it is very deep. It is unbelievably deep. And I've talked about it a couple times on the podcast anyway, so last couple of episodes, you can check my thoughts on that there. But man, what a wonderful little game. What a cool, interesting game. Like I said, it's film noir. Man, I love that genre of film, so it is just spectacular. And then last thing that I've been playing, see, I told you I got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Cuphead. There's a viewer in my chat in the Discord, and he used to be a modder for Cuphead. He was like the world's first Cuphead modder. And he's been talking to me about it for the last couple of days, and I was just like, dude, that sounds fun. I want to go back to Cuphead, but I don't know if I want to stream it, because Cuphead can get me frustrated. That could be a really challenging game. And he's like, dude, I'll give you some strats. I'll tell you what to do and when to do it and all this stuff. Like, it'll be fun. I'm like, okay, maybe we'll see. And then my wife, man, I love her. She is just fantastic and encouraging me to do different things that maybe I should probably do. So she was like, why don't you, she's been saying this for months, like, why don't you stream Cuphead? Why don't you play Cuphead? Play Cuphead, play Cuphead. I'm like, dude, do you want to see me get angry? I don't know. But I love that game. It is one of probably, if I would wipe the slate clean, and I think I might do this year, that maybe 2025, just because it's a better looking number. But I would really like to wipe the slate clean on my top 10 games of all time and redo it. I did the first, I think, episode 2 and 3 of this podcast were episodes about my top 10 games of all time, and I went through those. I would really like to wipe the slate clean, think back on all the video games that I've played over my lifetime, and I keep track of them, by the way. Not every single one I play, but every single one I complete and finish. I would really like to look at that list of every game that I've ever played and go, these are my top 10 games of all time, because I believe a good chunk of that list might change at this point. So I might do that. That might be super fun. That could be a total full-on podcast video set of just me going through that stuff. I don't know. It really depends on if people are interested in that or not. But dude, Cuphead is one of a possible top 10 contender for sure. A contender. It could have been contender. Man. So I've been really, really thinking about it, and then I finally kind of just caved in. I said, you know what? Fine. All right, I'll start Cuphead, because I know I can get through the first few bosses without that much of an issue. So when I started up the stream, I was playing some old retro games, and then I said, hey, this is kind of like this next game that I'm going to be playing is kind of a neutro game. A little bit new, a little bit old and retro. So kind of combine those two. I don't know if that term actually works or not, but I thought it was fun. Another user suggested it, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool, because we were talking about, just a rabbit trail here for a second. We were talking about playing remakes of old games, and what are those called? Sorry, Banjo's going crazy a little bit here. But basically, with old games that get remade, like Super Mario RPG, the remake that came out at the tail end of last year, just a couple months ago, I believe in November, I played through that game and it was a really fun time because I never actually finished Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. I've never finished it. I played the remake. I finished it. It was super fun. However, I have played it enough to know the differences. And there are very, very, very few small differences other than graphics. A couple tweaks to naming conventions for whatever stupid reason. Localization needs to go away like a bad habit. Man, localization teams need to knock it off. But other than that little rant, I would say that game is basically the exact same game with just a new coat of paint. Like the exact same game. What do you call that style of game? Because it is a remake and it is an old game. Like, should it go into a new genre title? And I think neutro, as weird and awkward as it is to say and sound like, might be a semi-appropriate genre title because, dude, it is a new game coming out in modern times, but a remake of an old game, a retro game. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then I kind of applied that to Cuphead because of the aesthetic more than anything else. The actual art style and design of that game is so old school, so classic Fleischer Studio that no other game really looks like it. There are some games that are starting to come out that are trying to apply the Cuphead look to it. And you can tell right away, boy, they are just, they're copying. They have no originality because this looks like off-brand Cuphead. But Cuphead is such a fun game, but it's very difficult. It's a very difficult game. So I was really apprehensive to play it. However, because of the viewer that's doing this, and his name's Gaben Zone, man. Gaben Zone, shout out to you, dude. You have been really instrumental in making me feel like playing Cuphead again. So that's what I did. And we started playing it, and he was giving me all these suggestions and tips and tricks and all this stuff. And it was just so much fun. We've been having a blast playing it. And I, again, apologize for Banjo howling away. He's just losing his mind there. But, dude, it's been so much fun playing Cuphead. And I'm taking a step back with it, too. When I played Cuphead originally, and I was really struggling with it, I just wanted to finish it. I just wanted to get through the boss, go to the next boss, go to the next boss, and finish the game. I was enjoying it, but I wasn't learning the patterns as much. It was more just like, bob and weave, bob and weave, bob and weave, stay alive. But now I'm learning these are the things to stay away from. These are the power-ups to use. These are the tools of the trade to get through this game efficiently, let's say. And having someone by my side saying, no, you got this. You're doing good. You're doing good. Okay, maybe next time do this instead. Oh, you keep doing that. Remember, you don't want to do that. Like some quote unquote backseat gaming has been really, really helpful for me to learn how to play the game correctly. And that hasn't just happened with Cuphead. It's been happening since I started playing the Cuphead or the Donkey Kong Country series too. I'm going through these games, but I'm having people tell me these tips and tricks that I've beaten these games before, but I'm now beating them in a different way. And that does make replaying games much more fun because I'm not a big replayer of games. It takes a lot for me to replay a game, but having the ability to have someone bounce ideas off of and have someone tell me, no, this strategy that you're doing is not going to work. You can brute force it, but you're going to have a bad time. Do this instead. You're going to enjoy it more. You're going to take less hits and you're going to get through it faster and be less stressed out. Like, dude, how rad, right? So that's what I've been doing with my time over the last couple of weeks, is just really enjoying the conversations, really enjoying just listening to the comments of people saying, no, you should probably do it this way a little bit. It's not been obnoxious. It's not been annoying or anything like that. It's been a pleasure to have people give me tips and tricks and stuff like that, because I'm playing the game a different way that allows me to enjoy it in a new way. Because if I just try and re-experience a game, I don't enjoy replaying games because I already had the experience. So that's kind of what it is over the last couple of weeks here. Has been just a blast playing video games on stream. And I'm really, really digging the streaming lifestyle. It has been fun. I do it for a living, just if I teach my normal job, I am in front of a camera talking to people all day long. I'm just not having anything else for them to look at other than my mug. So it is really enjoyable to have people converse with me, enjoy what I'm doing, and just, put up some entertainment for people to hang out and have a good time. And I've gotten a lot of really good feedback over the last couple of weeks. And I encourage people, dude, if you want to talk, if you want to just hang out, do whatever, that's fine. That's what I'm here for. I'm here like you, just to play video games, have fun, talk about them. But I also like doing my own thing, and that's why I have this podcast, because it is just me and my thoughts. That's why I have my website, gameordie.net, which is where not only am I posting articles of, stuff. I had a viewer talk to me and say, dude, you should write about some stuff from your store. I really enjoy the stories you tell on stream about your video game store. So I've been doing that. I've been writing some stuff down about little stories here and there about my store, and it's just been fun reminiscing. I'm further enough away from it in my life that it doesn't bum me out anymore, because there was definitely a good chunk of years where I just did not want to think about it at all. But it's been a blast, man. It's been so much fun. Doing this podcast has always been a joy for me. Over the last couple of months, I haven't been playing games as much, so I never felt like I could talk about video games as much as I could. I didn't feel like I had anything worth contributing to a podcast because I was just not really playing much games. And when I wasn't like playing one or two games. So like that conversation could be like 5 minutes, and then like that's not an episode of a podcast. It's been just so much fun doing this stuff and really going a lot deeper with some games, not just scratching the surface, not just completing them, but going a little bit deeper. And that's one thing that I do kind of regret about my Donkey Kong Country series playthrough. I do regret not actually spending the time to get the bonus items or all of the items in Donkey Kong Country 3, let's say, or 2. Not really diving deeper into those levels, just kind of completing them and moving on. Like, that's fine for me, but, I've done that before. I've played these games before, and I've beaten them before. So why not experience them in a little bit of a different way? And so I think going forward, that's maybe what I'm probably going to do, is I'm probably going to slow my roll a little bit with video games to where I'm more dedicated to opening up and experiencing a wider variety of what the game has to offer other than just beating it. Depending on the game and depending on the requirements and depending on the actual rewards for doing that. You complete a game 100% and all it does is give you a t-shirt for your character to play in the next playthrough that says, all I got was this lousy t-shirt, like Vice City. Not really worth all that much trouble, but to experience these games all the way through is not that hard. It's a few hours at most, a couple nights, but to like 100% it, or even just get like the items itself and the bonus stuff, I think that's a lot more interesting and fun. So it's something that I'm reflecting on, me personally, and just going, you know what? I might do this next time. Next time I pull up this game, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper in. And dude, I'm super excited about that. it's been a fun podcast. It's been really enjoyable. We've talked about a lot of special games, and I'm going to continue doing that. One of the things that I'm really excited about going forward with streaming is to showcase more and different games. One of the things that I really want to do is VR. I've been doing VR since 2014. I proposed my wife using VR. Like, it is a part of my life. I love VR, and I think it's something very special that most people don't know about. They've heard about it, but they've probably never experienced it. And VR is very, very tricky to show off. So a few years ago, I started a video about why VR is awesome. And it's been a project that I started, but I never actually fully finished, mostly because my job kept, requiring me to take a week off and travel at a time. And then by the time I would get back, I'd be so exhausted from traveling across the country that I didn't want to do it. And then I'd have to go back. And it was just this big old snowball of, hey, I don't have time. I don't have energy. I'm trying to have more time and energy. I'm trying to put forth more videos and stuff so that people can experience these things from my perspective. And my cousin last year was talking to me about VR. He's like, hey, you were really into VR for a while. What's going on with that? Is there anything new and special and stuff? I'm like, dude, a couple of years ago, I started doing a video and showing off VR and really having a fun time, but I never finished it. And so he's like, okay, all right. You should finish that video. That sounds interesting. And so he kind of encouraged me to finish it. And I was like, you know what? The way that it's set up right now with the project files and all that stuff, I'd much rather just kind of restart it. But I don't want to just scrap a 15-minute video, and have nothing to show for months of, stuff. So what I did is I actually took the files, I put together a work in progress video and just put it up on YouTube and said, hey, look, this is a work in progress project that I started a couple years ago. I never finished it, but I want to show off kind of what the idea of VR is and my perspective of it. So I put that up on YouTube. Excuse me here. I put that up on YouTube. And again, I've been getting some really good responses of, dude, you've sold me on VR, or you've sold me on this game. This is fantastic. This is awesome. I'm down to play VR. And, what do you recommend and all that stuff? So it's gotten the wheels in my brain start turning, right? All those gears are just starting to, start to come together and go, dude, this needs to happen. This needs to happen. I need to do this. I need to tell people about this technology because it's rad. And so many things have come out since that video was starting to be produced that I could do a much better version of it and more examples. So that's kind of what's on the forefront of my mind, other than streaming games, is making this VR video, part two, remake, whatever I want to call it, remastered version. I'm really excited about it, and I want to show people why VR is awesome. It is just a spectacular technology that has an unbelievable amount of potential, and no one's talking about it. So that is really what I'm kind of geared up and ready for in the next few weeks here. I'm trying to do a podcast a week now. I think I'm playing enough games that I can talk about games for a good, hour or two on a podcast and have those thoughts be expressed without losing them. The last couple of episodes, they've been, pretty big gaps in between recording. I think the last episode that I did before Game of the Year was in October. So there was a 2-month gap between recording and podcasting. I played a lot of games, but I forgot a lot of it too. So that's usually why I want to start recording more, is just so that I don't misremember something. I don't forget to tell someone about one of these games and my opinions on them, because I think I have a pretty valid opinion on most games because I've played a lot of games in my life. I've been playing video games since 1988. I've been called an old man recently. I'm not an old man, dude. I don't like that people my age who are in their mid to late 30s are saying, I'm old. No, you're not. So I would highly encourage people, if you want to check out my stuff, go to the website. It's gameordie.net. Super easy, super simple. And that not only has all the articles and the game reviews, all the videos. I'm starting to post that stuff, but it is also on the YouTube channel. But the website also has the Discord link, and I've finally started working on the Discord. I've been a manager or the owner of Couch Money Discord for the last several years, and I've put a lot of energy into that. But lately, I've been noticing that a lot of people are really just focused on talking about Giant Bomb still. Years later, after that company has basically died, I have zero desire to talk about Giant Bomb. I think they were great when they were great, but they haven't been great for a very long time, a good solid at least 5 years. And since then, I've just kind of moved on with my life, and I'd rather put my energy into doing what I think they should have been doing myself. If they're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And that's kind of also why I've been streaming a lot more, is because, dude, like, if they can't do their jobs properly, if they want to be lazy, if they just want to do the bare minimum and get money from it, fine. I don't care. I'm not going to pay attention to them. They're not worth my time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put forth my energy into my own stuff and, really focus on that. So that's kind of where 2024 is for Ryan Moore, and just life in general is just, man, I've got a really good path that I see that I want to take. And, the Lord's going to guide my steps more than anything else, but that's where I'm going. And that's what I'm striving for. And I really want to make this stuff work. And I hope people are enjoying it. I really want to make this podcast, my website, the streaming stuff work. I'm very, 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 very close to achieving at least affiliate. A lot of people are going, man, you're not affiliate yet? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting the views that I feel like I should. And it's not a numbers game or anything like that. I don't care about that. I just want people to be entertained and enjoy it. And if I do it a lot and if I do it enough, I feel like people will start coming around, listening to the podcast and looking at the website and watching the videos and going, oh yeah, you know what? I agree with Ryan, or I want to, you know what? I don't agree with Ryan and I want to talk to him about it. Dude, that's what the chat is for. I always welcome that stuff. A different frame of mind, a different mindset. I'm down to talk. So, not to get into a little mini rant there at the very end, but you can see I'm passionate about this stuff. I really enjoy this stuff, and this is my main hobby, and it's what I love doing. And if I can do that, do what I love doing, and entertain people at the same time, that's what it's all about. I know God's got a good, plan for my life, and I really, really, really am trying to see what that is. And I feel like he's opening up the doors on a lot of the streaming and podcasting. And if that's not the case, that's okay too, because, I need to align with his will. And that's where it is right now, man. It's a really interesting and fun and exciting time. 2022, 2023 were kind of rough, abysmal years. And it's really interesting because 2021, man, I know a lot of people hated 2020 and 2021. I was the exact opposite. I thought they were fantastic years. I had so much fun. But the last couple were really, really rough on me. And so I'm going in with a different positive mindset and just hitting the ground running and seeing where this takes me. And I hope you're along for the ride. I hope you are encouraged to do something you want to do. I hope you can see that if Ryan can be passionate about something, I can be passionate about something too. Whatever you want to do, man, start doing it. That's the one thing I regret about this stuff is I regret not doing it sooner. And not even that, because I've been doing this. I've been streaming since 2009, technically. I did it with my game store. I streamed on Justin TV, with Rock Band tournaments and stuff like that. Like, I was doing this stuff a long time ago, just not very well. But now I have a clear mindset and I'm starting to do it, and man, I should have been doing this earlier. That's the one regret that I have, is I did not do this earlier. If you feel like starting something, start it. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. But at least you tried. So there's your little nugget of encouragement for the end of the stream, the end of the podcast, because I think a lot of people are discouraged right now with life in general. And if I can encourage anyone, hey, I feel like I did my job a little bit. So yeah, I think that's a good spot to end on. All right. Well, my name is Ryan Moore. I run the Game or Die website. It's gameordie.net. That's also the name of this podcast. You can check it out on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or you can listen to it on the website at gameordie.net. And I hope you feel encouraged. I hope you feel ready to take on the rest of the day. It is freezing cold in here in this studio. We are in Middle Tennessee, more Southern Tennessee than anything else. And it is roughly about 8 degrees out. Let's just check the weather really. Oh, no, it's a little bit warmer. It is 24 degrees. It was 6 degrees last night, but it is still below freezing. And so that's why I'm wearing all bundled up with a sweater and a beanie and on, and I'm going to go have some dinner. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you have any comments or anything like that, feel free to follow the channel and actually comment. That's how I know people are liking what I'm doing or don't like what I'm doing. Just let me know. Just have a conversation with me, man. That's what it's all about. I enjoy doing this stuff, and I hope you enjoy listening. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. And I'll catch you next time on the stream. All right. Have a totally tubular rest of your day. Bye.